Story 1. Okay, so there was this time someone told me, talking to you just makes my brain feel calmer. And I was like, wait, what? That's such a specific and wholesome compliment. I still think about it sometimes. Story 2. Big things are going to happen for you, and I cannot wait to see what you do with them. It has felt like a lot of pressure to live up to and to wait for the big things to come. Story 3. I told my first grade students about a time I was walking in the grocery store, and a man said, "Hey, nice shoes," and how it made my day. I let them know it happened almost 10 years ago, but I still remember how it made me feel. I hope they see how one small, kind comment can make a difference. Later that day, a kid said my breath smelled bad, like coffee, and I did not forget that either. Story 4. I went on my daughter's high school Spanish language trip to Mexico as one of the parent escorts and helpers. We all had a fun trip. They were a good group of kids. Sometime afterward, we were reminiscing, and my daughter told me that she earned a lot of respect from her classmates for having the cool dad along on the trip. Me, I have never been the cool anything before. I was the bespectacled, overweight nerd when I was in high school. It made me feel warm inside. Story 5. I was a fat kid. I started running in my teens, and by grade 11 I was in fantastic shape, but no one really noticed the change at high school. I liked how clothes looked on me now, but I didn't think I was anything special. No one at school was flirting with me or anything. Well, graduation came, and my best friend who went to a different school came and brought 2 girls with him. They couldn't stay until the end but got to see me get my diploma. That weekend, Peter said those 2 girls lost their minds when they saw me. They said I was the most gorgeous man they had ever seen in their life. He said one of them literally gasped when I flipped my hair to get it out of my eyes. I had very 80s long preppy bangs. I was completely blown away. Later, when I got home, I looked in the mirror and realized the fat shy kid was gone, and the person looking back was a rock star. Instantly, I began to carry myself in a way that oozed sex appeal. I then spent the next 30 years using my good looks to get everything from free drinks, easy promotions, VIP club access, and even came close to getting on television. I don't know if I would have figured out I had that superpower if my buddy and those 2 girls hadn't brought it to my attention, but I am so glad they did. I'm 54 now, so that superhero level of attractiveness has faded quite a bit. But that's okay, because by 54, other aspects of you should become more important. Sometimes I miss getting an extra slice of pizza because of a half smile and puppy dog eyes. Story 6. A random man at a bar approached me and asked, "How do you do that?" I was confused, so he continued, "You walk into a room, and I watch people notice you. I was drawn to you. You look so calm and confident. Can you teach me?" I thought he was hitting on me. Even though I am straight, it still would have been flattering. Then he introduced me to his girlfriend, and she said the same thing. She asked what my story was and said all of her friends were talking about me. I did not know I was doing anything aside from just being myself. It was an amazing compliment. I have had a tough few months, and this was completely unexpected. It meant more than either of them will ever know. Story 7. You changed my life, and I will never forget what you have done for me. I have heard it quite a few times from different people, but that does not make it any less impactful when people say it to me. Story 8. I look like Harry Kane. I am morbidly obese and look nothing like him. They could only see my head because I was in the sea. Story 9. Someone told me that I am really pretty. I do not believe him because he looks like he was either drunk or high. Story 10. Red is a good color on you, you should wear it more. This was said by a girl I had a casual relationship with in college. I wore that shirt all the time for the next 3 years, and I still buy shirts of that shade of red because of that comment. Story 11. I don't think it was meant as a compliment, but someone on Tinder once told me I looked like a dragon and he wanted to slay. Then he said, "You look really scary in a creepy hot kind of way." It was hilarious, and I still laugh about it. My friends even nicknamed me the Dragon for a while, unleashed the dragon on him, and so on. Story 12. Either I was so amazing and adorable that I meant everything to her, or I was the best lover she had ever had, and she had been wanting to be with me for a very long time. Story 13. I was ringing up a young woman at my job about 14 years ago who was insistent that I looked like Mark Ruffalo. At the time, I had no idea who that was and told her so. She looked him up on her phone to show me. I do not look like Mark Ruffalo, but I was very flattered by the sentiment. He is a good-looking man and a great actor. Story 14. You could be a model if it was not for your nose. That is easy enough to get work done on anyway. I was 15. Story 15. You are one of the most beautiful people I have met. I will keep reminding you. This came to me at a time when I was at rock bottom, had nobody, and felt the most unloved. That text hit me like a train. Story 16. I was at the playground with my little cousins for a day out. I was wearing my big black boots, all my spikes and chains, my battle vest with my favorite bands all over, Dead Kennedy's t-shirt. A little girl was hanging around my vicinity for a while and eventually came up to me, asking if we could take turns sitting on her skateboard and riding it down the hill. I agreed. She said, I knew you'd say yes. So we rode her skateboard down the hill over and over, laughing with amusement until she had to leave. It brings a tear to my eye thinking about it. I've received many compliments in my lifetime about my talent, my looks, and my intelligence, but I consider this the best compliment I've ever gotten, that she knew I'd ride down the hill with her. Story 17. My eyes are a mix of gray and blue, and I'm going to be a heartbreaker, as all grandmothers used to say. Story 18. My partner and I were in an elevator, and a slightly older lady kept staring at me. I was in my 40s, so this was about 20 years ago. The lady must have been in her mid-50s. She stared for 4 floors. Just as we were getting out, she told me I had the most beautiful eyes and that she just could not help staring. That was nice. Story 19. A coworker, after a company event, gave them a lift to a Skitran station afterward. They opened up about their upbringing and told me that I was a very kind person. I really hold on to the fact that someone thinks or thought that I am a kind person. Story 20. My employer met my former employer at an awards ceremony. She said, "Thank you for letting her leave. She has made my life much easier and is brilliant at her job." Story 21. You're gifted. Told to me by someone who doesn't lie, is brilliant, and routinely makes me feel inadequate. But he never says anything he doesn't mean. Story 22. I was walking at an amusement park about 15 years ago, and a girl walking past said, "Cool shirt," to my Dexter-themed shirt. Story 23. A patient asked, "Do you have children?" I replied, "No, why?" The patient said, "That's a real pity. You're really funny. I really appreciated that." Story 24. When my son was in college, a girl he knew told me on behalf of women my age, "Thank you for raising your son to be the kind of person he is." Story 25. A customer once told me I had a very nice forehead. I have a somewhat awkward smile and responded, Thank you." Laugh out loud. Story 26. Nothing special. At my graduation party, my slightly intoxicated teacher said she thinks I am a really good person. Story 27. My art teacher called me brilliant and praised my art skills in front of the whole class unexpectedly. She truly meant it that way. I was so embarrassed I wished I had died on the spot. Story 28. My boyfriend said that he likes my stomach. I have been insecure about it my whole life. His comment changed the way I look at it. Story 29. My ex told me that out of everyone in her life, including her family, I was the most caring person she had ever met. Story 30. Who does your eyebrows? They look amazing. I worked at Disney World for a while and was at an outdoor pop-up shop stand that was joined with another company, a third party, so not Disney but kind of half. The girls there were hired to paint faces, and they were always stunning to me. We worked in the sun for hours, so I know we all looked like a hot mess in mid-June a few years ago. I've never been fond of makeup or dressing nicely because, growing up, I would be made fun of or chastised for it. So I did the bare minimum to look presentable and well-groomed, but I didn't go all out, although I am changing that slowly. One thing I did do because I hated them was tweeze my eyebrows. This has stuck with me, and I still smile when I think of it. Story 31. I went to visit the doctor because I was sick for 5 days straight without a bath or washing my face. A lady at the hospital kept staring at me and said, "Don't mind me, you look beautiful. That's why I have been staring at you." Story 32. Once, a barista spelled my name correctly on the first try without asking. I have been chasing that high ever since. Story 33. Had an ex tell me he never thought he would fall in love with a plus-size woman. He was more upset about being called a bird, to be honest. Story 34. I had a friend who adopted a cat with trust issues. When I went over, it let me pet and play with it almost immediately, to which she said he must trust you as much as I do. Story 35. My current friend, formerly with benefits, told me that I always know just the right thing to say when I gave her some helpful life and relationship advice. She makes me feel like a local superhero. Story 36. Many people told me I am beautiful, smart, and brave. But when my cats come to me and purr, I feel like the best person in the world. Story 37. I used to work in London as a mobile bicycle mechanic. One day, a lady about 30 years my senior asked me about my job. She was so polite that I couldn't help but smile. When I did, she noticed immediately and told me I had the best smile she had ever seen. I have been in love with this lady ever since. Story 38. I do not know if it is a compliment, but my aunt told me she can sleep easy at night knowing my mother, her sister, was in good hands. My mother was dying, and I looked after her until the end. Story 39. Talking about Korean pop groups for this one. A few years ago, I was talking to someone who was a fan of BTS and nothing else. I mentioned that I was a fan of some groups and a casual listener of others. After we spoke a bit, she mentioned that she had tried listening to other groups but wasn't keen on their music. I simply said, "It's okay, not everyone is going to like the same music, and that's 100% fine." She then said that I am the nicest fan of multiple groups she had ever met and how she usually gets some hate from fans of multiple groups. I replied that everyone is different, and so is their music taste, so everyone's taste is unique to them. I still think about that compliment she gave me. It makes me smile every time. Story 40. My sister always humiliated me in front of everyone, saying that my lips were fat like those of dolls called brats. All my friends laughed when they told me that. Out of nowhere, a man appeared and said, "Don't worry, when you're older, you will be the one that all the girls want to kiss. They like full lips." It was not a big deal, but that really raised my self-esteem and helped me a lot. Thank you, Sir Unknown. Story 41. It was not said to me but about me. I had lost a solid 50 pounds, and a family member said to my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, "She looks so healthy now that she has lost weight." His response was, "I love her no matter what size she is." Story 42. Back in the 1980s, I went to a concert featuring the legendary jazz drummer Max Roach. After the show, an insider said Max was headed to a local club where a jam session was happening. I got my guitar and went over. Sure enough, Max was there, and many people sat in and showed off. Max paid attention to everyone who was playing. I got my turn and played a couple of songs. As Max got up to leave, he walked up to me and said, "I enjoyed your playing," then left without saying a word to anyone else. Story 43. I have heard that I have a nice appearance and that people feel comfortable asking me about something when they have a problem. I used to think I had a serious facial expression and that people would rather not talk to me. Story 44. You spoke to me. You are not like the others I thought when I had a chat with the cleaner at a posh gym. I am so proud of that. Story 45. I am a gifted writer. Writing is my forte, but my mental health situation and the erratic behavior that comes with it throw everything out of balance. I appreciate forums like Reddit that give me a chance to voice my thoughts in my own way. I am much more eloquent in writing than I am when speaking, something many people can relate to. No matter how awkward you feel in social situations, Reddit lets you drop the mask, be yourself, and speak freely. Story 46. Me. I am not a very helpful friend. You are always giving me lifts in the car. What do I give? My friend. Just being around you makes me feel better. Stop. Story 47. He would be a perfect husband for me. My crush said this 2 minutes before I arrived at the bar where our friend group hung out. I couldn't stop thinking about it. even when a friend told me she only said that because she feels comfortable around me and trusts me. Apparently, she is looking for someone like her ex, who is also a mutual friend, but he treats her worse in public and can't have private conversations. I'm still riding that high from the compliment. Story 48. One of my coworkers back in the day, her grandfather called me a pimp. He was darker skinned than I and was 65 years old at the time. I was honored. Story 49. A grandparent at my daycare told me I reminded him of a mother pit bull. Sweet and playful, but if someone puts a hand on the children in my care, I will be handing it back to them. Story 50. I am an Indian who moved to Boston a few months ago. Last month, while I was sitting on a public bench, four black people approached me and said, "Hey man, you are looking sharp today." This is a compliment that I will not easily forget. Story 51. I was walking down the sidewalk and passed a man walking two very posh and well-groomed dogs. As we walked by each other, I said, "Your dogs are beautiful." And he responded, "You are too," then continued walking. It really made my day. I have had my fair share of self-confidence issues, and it was nice to receive a compliment from a stranger that was genuine and casual. Story 52. I was told by my creative writing teacher one day that I was his most astute student. Then he asked me not to share that with any of my classmates. I was moved by the compliment nonetheless. I held him in very high regard. Story 53. A guy said to me, "You're pretty, like Shania Twain pretty," and I had never received a compliment like that in my life, especially from men, except my dad. Story 54. Methed out prostitute in 29 Palms, California, as I walked out of a convenience store. "Jesus Christ, you're fine. You look like you are really good at what you do. I'd give you a try for free. Damn." Story 55. I started growing out my hair after realizing I was a transgender woman. My very plain brown hair, which I had kept in a fade for as long as I could remember, grew out into ringlet curls. 3 years of growth later, a random lady in Walmart walked past the aisle I was in, walked back and said, "I love your hair," then walked away. It was the first time I had ever been complimented by a stranger. Felt amazing. Story 56. My sister said that if she were born again, she would totally want me as her big sister. Something melted in my heart when she said that. Story 57. My friends say that every now and then, being with me and hearing my conversations makes them feel calm, positive, and heard. I feel so good remembering that. Story 58. Some years ago, a woman once told me that the way I sit down is perfectly done. She was referring to the motion I make to physically sit down. This compliment sticks with me because it is the most unusual compliment I have ever heard. Story 59. I've always been insecure that I talk too much, and I worry all the time that people I'm talking to secretly wish I would stop. Then that was compounded by a comment from an old boyfriend. We were on a road trip, and mid-conversation he looked over and said, "You know, you don't have to talk all the time." We dated another year or so, but it broke something in me. Fast forward a few years and I was with a group of people at a restaurant, a friend of mine and a bunch of his friends I had just met. I had just finished a story and noticed one of the girls get a look on her face like she was thinking something. I immediately worried she was annoyed I was talking so much. Then she looked at me and said, "Has anyone ever told you you're like sunshine?" I learned from my friend later that she was going through a pretty rough time and was feeling down that night. Apparently, the way I was talking emphatically and a lot just radiated positivity and joy and made her feel better. I cried. Story 60. The first time I had sex, she said, "Jesus, you are very large." I wasn't really, I just didn't know what I was doing. Story 61. I worked in pathology for years. I went into college knowing this was what I wanted to do and maintained my enthusiastic, wide-eyed, bushy-tailed attitude as I began working in the field. I soon realized the medical field in the United States is deeply flawed. The workload is overwhelming, management is often corrupt, employees are overworked, and money takes precedence over actual care. But that is a topic for another time. This brings me to why this compliment meant so much to me. One day, a pathologist came into the lab and asked me to follow him back to his office. I was very nervous. I had just completed a series of special stains for him, and I assumed it was related to that, especially because this particular tissue was difficult to work with and did not stay on the slide. I had to redo the slides several times, which was my decision, so I wondered if I had made the right choice. He sat down and told me to look into the microscope with him. He said that my determination and skill as a technician led him to find metastatic cancer from a completely different source than originally thought, thereby changing the patient's entire treatment and prognosis. If I had just said, "Well, I tried," bone marrow notoriously doesn't stay on slides, which is true and must be considered with this tissue type and stains ordered, the patient would not have received the correct treatment and might have lost precious time in their life. Given how insanely busy and hectic the medical field is, compliments are rare. Of course, people don't enter the medical field seeking compliments, but I did want to make a difference and help patients, and I received that validation. Once. I will never forget it. Story 62. A boss told me months later how much I have improved since I started and how I shined on a particular job. It was totally unexpected, and it took everything in me not to break down right then and there. Story 63. A good friend of mine said that instead of asking herself, "What would Jesus do?" she asks herself, "What would my name do?" Anytime she does something nice for someone else, she says, "I pulled a my name today." Story 64. My best friend of many years and I were having a heart-to-heart conversation about how my parents call me too naive and trusting. They said this: "While I encourage you not to let others take advantage of your kindness, nor to view kindness as your only positive quality, I think that your default state of being nice is not naive or unrealistic. It is just embodying what the world should be like. In many ways, I look up to them, so this meant a lot." Story 65. My choir instructor said, "You could go to college on that voice." I didn't, but having an instructor think my voice was good enough to earn me scholarships put me on cloud nine for about a month. It is still one of the best compliments I have ever received, and it has been over 20 years. Story 66. I transitioned, and my brother, who was a hard sell but supportive, was sitting with me having a few drinks when he blurted out, "You looked like Marilyn Monroe from the side just now." I almost choked up laughing because I do not in any way resemble her. This, however, lives with me always. Story 67. You are an interesting person. I was talking to a friend and colleague some months ago, and we were discussing someone we know. I told her that he always wants to pretend that he is interesting, and I added that I cannot judge him because I have done the same when I was younger. She is brutally honest, and she told me that. I felt like crying because I admire her so much. That made my day and my year. Story 68. We were talking about what we were going to do when we grew up as teenagers, and my cousin said she always thought I would be a model when I grew up. I am tall and blonde with a decent face. I have been overweight most of my life. This was a startling and amazing thing to hear as an overweight and painfully shy 14-year-old girl, especially from my gorgeous, petite 17-year-old cousin. I am 39 now, and I still think about it a lot. Story 69. I used to belong to a belly dance troupe for about 10 years. We broke up due to COVID-19. I am a plus-sized girl. We danced at a cultural festival at a school in our tribal dance attire. Afterward, a plus-sized teen girl came up to me and told me I was her inspiration. She said I looked like I was having the best time and didn't let my extra pounds hold me back. I inspired her to step out and try something new. That was probably 15 years ago, and I have never forgotten her. I hope she is doing great and living her best life. Story 70. Can I touch your hair? I love it. It makes me want to fall in love. My hair is better at attracting women than I am. Story 71. I have experienced this a couple of times. Once, I went out to dinner by myself, which is something I do regularly. A man approached me while I was sitting alone and said he found it very attractive that I had the self-confidence to dine alone. He asked how I had the confidence to do that. For me, I was just being myself, thinking, I was hungry. It was nice to receive a compliment. Story 72. A random stranger told me that I was very beautiful. Another time, someone just made conversation, and I told him I was living alone for my first year in college. Our university does not have dorms, and I was on a different island. He told me that I was really brave and strong, then said goodbye. Story 73. A couple of ex-girlfriends, out of nowhere, said, "You realize you are good looking, right? Good to know that has nothing to do with my personality." Story 74. I used to have a customer respond to me by saying, "Have a nice day." And he answered with, "You may have a better one." I never thought of a way to respond to that. Maybe I will try. Story 75. Someone told me I had a beautiful smile. I had braces for years before that, so she had no idea how nice that was. Story 76. We were at girls' night when she suddenly said to me, "You have those muscles." Then she started touching my arms. I wanted to cry. Story 77. My friend's older sister, who was very attractive and too old for me at the time, told me I had gorgeous eyes. I melted and I am still melting. Story 78. One time, another woman told me I have a beautiful collarbone and neckline. It seemed like such a genuine compliment that it stuck with me. The other time was when my 6-year-old granddaughter proclaimed, "Grandma, you have beautiful eyes." She had never noticed green eyes before. It was so sweet and genuine. Story 79. I love spicy food and have talked about it a lot, but it was all Cajun-style seasonings and heat. My Indian friend took me to try spicy versions of authentic Indian dishes. No water was allowed during dinner, and he complimented my ability to handle the heat, especially for being a white person. Story 80. I was still just a kid, but a lady really liked a painting I was working on in an art class at our art center. She asked if I was going to sell it. I don't even remember what I said. I was probably no more than 11 at the time, but she came back after our last class and offered me $100 in about 1964. I probably accepted too quickly, but my allowance was only $3 a week. I still smile about that sale. Story 81. Someone said I am very good-looking and handsome once. I don't believe them, but it makes me feel good that they thought so because I really liked them. They were very pretty, but that was long ago. I still won't forget it. Story 82. A friend of mine suffered a miscarriage, and when she became pregnant again, she was at risk. She was scared and wouldn't allow herself to be happy about the new pregnancy. I felt like I was walking on eggshells when asking her about it, and I didn't want to pressure her or be intrusive. One day, I told her that I was worried I was asking too much, and she replied, "Actually, you are the only person in this world I want to talk to about this." My heart melted. She is like family to me, and I wanted to make her feel better. Story 83. I have a few. The first and least interesting one is that I was once told at a school dance that I gave off Jay Gatsby vibes, which was funny. This was confirmed to be a compliment. At my freshman year homecoming, a female friend said, "You clean up nicely." That was the first time someone outside of my family complimented my appearance. The one that stuck with me the most is something my father said. In high school, I had a choir performance where I had a solo, and I performed very well. On the car ride back, my dad turned to me and asked, "Is this the kind of situation where, as your father, I need to nurture this talent and get you a voice coach or something?" The way he said it was both serious and obviously impressed by my performance. He wanted the best for me, and that combination made it a moment I will always remember. An honorable mention goes to any genuine compliment I have received from a girl. Story 84. I have a few. The first and least interesting is that I was once told at a school dance that I gave off Jay Gatsby vibes, which was funny and meant as a compliment. At my freshman year homecoming, a female friend said, "You clean up nicely." That was the first time someone outside my family complimented my appearance. The one that stuck with me the most is something my father said. In high school, I had a choir performance where I had a solo, and I did very well. On the car ride back, my dad turned to me and said, "Is this the kind of situation where, as your father, I need to nurture this talent and get you a voice coach or something?" The way he said it was both serious and clearly impressed, wanting the best for me. That combination made it an incredible moment I'll always remember about my dad. An honorable mention goes to any sexual compliment any girl has ever given me. Story 85. I had a really big beard once and I trimmed it up. I felt that I cut too much off and was sad all day until later when a cashier told me my beard was amazing. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.